Hej og velkommen til en ny video. Det er lige nu mandag den 23. september, og klokken den er cirka 20 over 9. I den her video så vil jeg komme lidt ind på en opdatering for, hvordan at markedet det ser ud her til morgen, og hvad vi kan forvente senere i dag. Og så vil jeg snakke om et par specifikke nyheder, som jeg synes er rigtig interessante. Det ene, det er et AI-værktøj, som Google for nylig har lanceret, som jeg synes er yderst spændende, for at sige det mildt. Og så vil jeg egentlig bare snakke lidt om en nyhed, der kom her i Intel i slutningen af sidste uge, som jo også er en aktie, som jeg kigger nærmere på. Så jeg vil egentlig starte lidt med det generelle marked, og så gå videre til de her to nyhedshistorier. Jeg prøver jo generelt at holde øje, ikke med alle aktier på en gang, men jeg prøver at holde øje med nogle af de specifikke sektorer og specifikke virksomheder, som jeg interesserer mig for. Men lad os starte med lige at snakke om det generelle marked. Markedet det er relativt neutralt, så der er ikke det store at berette her. Bevægelserne er ikke synderligt vilde. Hverken på det danske eller det kinesiske marked, som der jo har været åbent her i nat, eller som der altid åbner nat om natten dansk tid. Noget af det, der netop er sket her til morgen, jamen det er, at dollaren den stiger markant, og det er lige sket her for et øjeblik siden, mens jeg optager den her video, hvor dollaren er steget fra 6,68 til 6,71, når man sammenligner med den danske krone. Og det kan vi også se i mit depot her, hvor at jeg har en stigning på 0,3%. Det som jeg gør generelt, det er jo, at jeg går ind og veksler mine penge fra danske kroner til US dollars, og så køber jeg primært aktier i amerikanske virksomheder i US dollaren, blandt andet fordi at jeg har størst tiltro til de amerikanske virksomheder, men også fordi at jeg også gerne vil have eksponering imod den amerikanske dollar, fordi at jeg vælger at sætte mine penge på, at den amerikanske dollar vil blive ved med eller ikke vil blive ved, men den vil være stærkere og udvikle sig stærkere end euroen og den danske krone i de kommende år og årtier. Jeg planlægger at have aktier i mange år frem endnu. Så det var et af de ting, jeg blev spurgt om her i sidste uge, det er, hvorfor at jeg har nogle af mine Novo Nordisk aktier, dem har jeg både i danske kroner, og så har jeg også den amerikansk noterede Novo Nordisk aktie i US dollars. Og da jeg købte Novo Nordisk i første omgang, det var en del år siden, den her aktie er jo også steget 434% siden da, der havde jeg ikke den her præference for at have størst mulig eksponering i amerikanske dollars, men det fik jeg så senere hen, da jeg købte op i Novo Nordisk i anden omgang, og siden da har jeg, hvis jeg har haft mulighed for det, foretrukket at købe aktier i USD frem for danske kroner eller euro. Så ja, men et lille sidespor til hvad jeg vil snakke om, det var det her AI-værktøj, jeg vil komme nærmere ind på. Men der sker også bare meget hele tiden, så der er mange ting at snakke om. Lad os starte med at kigge lidt på Alphabet. Alphabet det er jo en aktie, som jeg har solgt ud af for nylig. I kan se her i min transaktionsoversigt, at jeg har solgt aktier i Alphabet den 12. juli. Og der har jeg solgt den i kurs 186, og jeg har igen solgt den i kurs 181, hvor jeg solgte de resterende mine Alphabet-aktier til kurs, den her 181. Der er noget andet, jeg lige vil gå frem til. Ja, det er den her realisationsoversigt. Jeg har haft mine Alphabet-aktier i lang tid, og har haft en profit på dem her på omkring 258.000 kroner. Har jeg et realiseret gevinst på mine Google-aktier. Jeg valgte jo at sælge mine Google-aktier. Det har jeg allerede lavet nogle videoer om, hvorfor jeg valgte at gøre. Det har jeg uploadet her henholdsvis den 19. september. Og undskyld, det var lidt forkert det jeg sagde. Det her det var en anden aktie. Det jeg prøver at sige, det er, at jeg har uploadet en video den 22. juli. Og jeg har uploadet en anden video den 12. juli, hvor jeg kommer ind på, hvorfor jeg solgte mine aktier i Google. Helt kort, hvis jeg skal opsummere det ganske kort, så er det jo fordi, at Google de laver en rigtig stor del af deres profit. 80% af deres omsætning kommer fra Google Ads og fra YouTube-annoncering og det her søgenetværk. Og jeg synes, det er en lidt sårbar forretningsmodel i forhold til, hvordan internettets udvikling den går. Men det, som der så er sket siden da, det er jo, at Google har udviklet det her AI-værktøj. Og nu er det vist på tide, at jeg kommer til at snakke lidt om det. Det som det er noget, som der hedder Notebook LM. Og hvis vi prøver at åbne det, så det man har mulighed for her, det er, at man har mulighed for at uploade et tekstdokument, og så kan Google gå ind og lave det her til en meget, meget troværdig og god podcastfil. Og det er ikke bare fordi, at den læser op, altså den gør det til, jeg tror det er bedst, at jeg afspiller et eksempel her lige om lidt, så kan I selv vurdere, hvad I tænker om det. Men det er 2 værter, der snakker om den tekstfil, man uploader, på en måde, der både er meget fængende, der virker ekstremt naturtro, og hvor at de også inkluderer sådan eventuelt sådan små jokes eller indskudte bemærkninger, der virker meget, meget naturlige og menneskelige. Og jeg har lige prøvet at gøre det med forskellige dokumenter her i weekenden, og jeg tænker også, at jeg vil afspille et eksempel lige her om lidt. Og det dokument, som jeg har tænkt mig i den her lille video og uploade til Google Notebook, det er den her rapport, som jeg tit anbefaler, når folk har spørgsmål omkring det med at komme i gang med at investere i aktier. Det er jo en rapport, der er skrevet af 2 professorer og en fondsdirektør i ATP, hvor de skriver om anbefalinger om aktieinvesteringer til private investorer. Det er en rigtig god pdf, som jeg synes, man kommer rigtig langt ved at læse, hvis man læser den her fra A til Z. Men den kan jo selvfølgelig også være interessant at høre i et podcastformat. Så lad os prøve at gå ind og uploade den til Google Notebook eller. Jeg har nu været inde og uploade den her rapport, altså downloadet den som pdf og uploadet den her til det her værktøj. Det som man så kan, det er, at man kan generere den her dybdegående samtale af 2 værter, indtil videre er det kun på engelsk, og så vil de snakke om det her meget lange pdf-dokument og tage de mest væsentlige pointer ud fra det, og simpelthen lave en AI-genereret podcast om det. Og det vil jeg prøve at afspille for jer om et øjeblik. Så det man gør, det er jo bare at klikke på den her knap, og så lader man den generere den her podcast, og det kan tage et par minutter for den at gøre det. Så jeg vil egentlig bare lige pause videoen, og så kan vi lige om lidt, når den har genereret det, så kan I prøve at høre et udklip af den her podcast, den har genereret. Okay, så fik jeg genereret den her podcast. Så inden at jeg afspiller den, så vil jeg bare lige yderligere sådan uddybe lidt, hvorfor det er, at jeg synes, den er rigtig vildt. For det første, så synes jeg, det er altså med længder det allerbedste AI-genererede lyd, jeg har hørt overhovedet. Det virker fuldstændig som om, det er 2 mennesker, der snakker helt naturligt om den her rapport, og har ligesom udtrukket de allervigtigste pointer fra den. Og det vi har at gøre med her, det er altså en dansk pdf, ret læsetung rapport. Der er, hvor mange sider er den? Den er de her 4-35 sider. Relativt teknisk. Det som de gør i det her AI-program, det er jo, at de bryder det ned i et meget let forståeligt sprog, på engelsk i det her tilfælde, hvor at de nævner de mest relevante pointer, og det lyder fuldstændig som om det er 2 menneskelige værter. Hvis jeg ikke vidste, at det var AI-genereret, så ville jeg på ingen måde kunne høre det. Og det, som jeg synes, der er tankevækkende ved det her, det er, at jeg synes, at Google de har haltet lidt bagefter ChatGPT i høj grad, blandt andet med Bard og Gemini og de her programmer, de selv har prøvet at lave, der kunne nogle af de samme ting som ChatGPT. Men nu synes jeg faktisk, at Google kommer med noget helt nyt og ret banebrydende. Og det begynder altså at øge lidt min tiltro til, at Google måske er ved at være meget godt med i det her AI-race igen. Eller måske begynder at have i hvert fald som minimum noget lidt nyt og imponerende og bidrage med. Så det som jeg vil gøre, det er egentlig bare, at jeg vil lade den her spille færdig, fordi at jeg synes, at den her podcast har en værdi i sig selv. Så lige om lidt, så vil jeg bare sætte den her på, og den er jo 11 minutter og 40 sekunder. Og det er altså alle de vigtigste pointer for den her også, efter min mening, meget fremragende rapport. Selvfølgelig er det ikke alt, de når at få med på 11 minutter, men de kommer rigtig vidt omkring, og så kan I selv både vurdere det, der står i den her rapport, indholdet af den, som jeg synes har en god værdi, og så kan I også få et indblik i, hvordan den her rapport, eller hvordan det her program, det virker. Og jeg vil egentlig bare opfordre jer til at uploade noget, I selv har skrevet. Jeg har uploadet nogle længere tekster, som jeg selv har skrevet, for eksempel min bachelor i psykologi og nogle andre ting, som der ikke er så interessante for jer måske. Men det er ret vildt at uploade noget, som man selv har skrevet fra start til slut, og høre dem lave en podcast om det. Men nok om det. Jeg vil egentlig også snakke lidt om Intel og et par andre ting, men det når jeg ikke lige i den her video, for så bliver den alt for lang. Så jeg vil egentlig bare spille det her klip fra start til slut, og klippe det ind i den her video, og så kommer jeg til at uploade endnu en video her senere i dag eller i morgen, hvor jeg kommer ind på de her nyheder, der har været omkring Intel-aktien og et par andre ting, jeg også gerne vil nå at snakke om. Men hvis I ikke har lyst til at høre mere, så bare sluk videoen, og ellers så kommer den her AI-genererede podcast nu.
Hey everyone, ready to dive into the world of investing.
I know it can seem a bit intimidating for some.
Yeah, for sure.
But we've got something special lined up for this deep dive.
We do.
We're looking at a report from way back in 2011.
Oh wow, 2011, that's going back a bit.
It's called Anbefalinger investeringer.
Kitschy, right.
But what makes it so interesting is it's specifically for, well, non-professional investors.
Basically people like us.
Exactly.
So no confusing jargon, just straight to the point advice.
And here's the kicker. It's tailored for the Danish market.
Which is perfect for us, obviously.
Precisely.
So we're not just getting generic tips, we're getting insights that really hit home.
Right. And, one of the first things that surprised me about this report.
Oh yeah, tell me.
They don't even want you to think about stocks until you've tackled your debt.
Really? They go straight for the debt talk.
Yeah, it's all about building that strong financial foundation first, getting your own house in order before you start playing the market.
So all that advice about using your home equity for investments.
Yeah, they're not big fans of that as a starting point.
Interesting. So it's more about getting those high interest debts out of the way.
Absolutely. They actually argue that paying down that kind of debt often gives you a better return than those early, smaller investments would.
Huh. Never thought of it that way.
It's like they have this 100,000 kroner rule.
100,000 kroner rule. Okay. I'm intrigued.
So they're basically saying that smaller investments, especially when you're starting out, they just create unnecessary stress, especially with Denmark's tax system, which, let's be honest, can be a bit of a maze.
Oh, tell me about it.
It's like you don't need to be a master baker to enjoy a delicious pastry.
Okay. I like that analogy. Sometimes keeping it simple is key.
Exactly. And after they cover the importance of getting your finances straight, they dive into this whole stocks versus bonds debate.
The classic, right?
But they do it with a Danish twist, focusing specifically on how these investments perform here.
Okay, now that's something you don't hear every day.
Right. And here's a surprising fact. Historically, Danish stock returns have actually been lower than in the U.S.
Wait, really? I would have thought it'd be the other way around. You'd think we'd be a bit more, stable over here.
You'd think so, right. But they actually use Table 1 in the report to back this up.
Okay, so they've got the data.
They show that while there's definitely long-term potential in the Danish stock market, it's not without its risks.
So no get-rich-quick schemes then?
Definitely not. And they even have a name for that mindset.
Oh, do tell.
They call it the Dacalas theory, which is basically assuming everyone else is just as smart as you are.
Dacalas theory. I'm going to have to remember that one. It's like a good reality check, right? Don't get too big for your britches, because chances are someone else has already thought of it.
Exactly. They're trying to remind us about market efficiency. Like those big investors, they're already acting on all the latest information.
So trying to outsmart them is a recipe for disaster.
Pretty much, yeah.
So that hot stock tip from my brother-in-law at the family barbecue, probably not going to make me a millionaire, is it?
Probably not, no. They actually use Vestas stock as an example.
Okay, Vestas, I know them. They're big in wind power, right?
That's the one.
So what do they say about Vestas?
Let's say there's some big news about U.S. wind power policy.
Yeah.
By the time you read about it and you think, oh, this is going to make Vestas stock go up, it's already been factored into the price.
Because everyone else is reading the same news, trying to be as smart as you?
Precisely.
It's kind of humbling when you put it like that.
It's easy to get caught up in thinking you've stumbled onto some secret strategy, but the reality is we're all just trying to make sense of the same information.
And that's where those investment gurus come in, promising you the moon and the stars.
Oh, absolutely.
Preying on that desire to beat the system.
And you know what? They often target individual investors, people who might not be as familiar with how the market really works.
So skepticism is our friend here. Don't believe everything you hear, especially when it sounds too good to be true.
I couldn't have said it better myself. So, once we've got that healthy skepticism in check,
Yeah.
how do we actually make smart investment decisions?
The million-kroner question, right?
Well, the report dives into some practical strategies for long-term success.
I like the sound of that.
And the very first one they emphasize is you've got to control that inner gambler.
Oh, I feel that. It's so easy to get caught up in the excitement of it all, The potential for big wins, the fear of missing out.
Absolutely. But they're really hammering home this idea of discipline, that real wealth building isn't about chasing those quick thrills.
It's about making smart strategic moves for the long game.
Exactly. Less Wolf of Wall Street, more like Wise Owl of Copenhagen, am I right?
Love that.
And speaking of wise moves, they then highlight something that I think often gets overlooked.
Yeah. What's that?
Minimizing those pesky costs.
Because even small fees can really add up over time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. They give some really eye-opening examples, like think about those online trading fees every time you buy or sell.
Yeah, you're paying a little something.
Exactly. And those little somethings, they can really chip away at your returns in the long run.
And then there are those investment funds, some with surprisingly high management fees.
Don't even get me started on those. So the takeaway is clear.
Every crony saved on fees is a crony earned towards your financial future.
You got it. Which leads us to one of the report's core strategies,
Drum roll, please.
the buy and hold approach.
Ah, yes. Buy and hold. I've heard of it. But to be honest, it always sounded a bit, boring to me.
Yeah, I get that it doesn't have that same, sex appeal as some of the more active trading strategies.
Right.
But here's why it's so powerful, especially for us Danish investors. First off, it minimizes those transaction fees we were just talking about.
Because you're not constantly buying and selling, racking up all those little fees.
Precisely. And here's the second reason, and this is a big one.
Okay.
Taxes. Remember, in Denmark, you're not taxed on those stock profits until you actually sell.
Oh, right.
So by holding on to those stocks longer, it's like getting a free loan from the government, essentially.
Wow. I never thought about it like that. So patience really does pay off.
It really does. And historically speaking, the market tends to trend upwards over the long term.
Even with all the ups and downs along the way.
Exactly. Buy and hold lets you ride that wave without getting shaken by every little dip in the market.
So no more panic selling every time there's a bit of a wobble.
Ideally, no. Now, on the topic of managing risk, the report also delves into diversification.
Ah, yes. Diversification. The classic, don't put all your eggs in one basket strategy.
Exactly. But here's where things get interesting.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
They actually argue that for most Danish investors, sticking to Danish stocks can actually simplify things.
Easily. But I always hear about the importance of diversifying globally.
I know, right? But their reasoning is quite clever. They argue that thanks to globalization, even our Danish companies are already pretty exposed to those global markets.
That's true. I hadn't really thought about it that way.
And on top of that, managing a portfolio of Danish stocks is generally cheaper and easier, especially for, non-professional investors like us.
So I can still get some of that global exposure, even if I'm keeping my investments closer to home.
Exactly. Now, they don't completely write off investment funds, but they do urge caution.
Because of those fees again, I imagine.
Exactly. While funds can be a convenient way to get that diversification across hundreds of stocks,
Yeah.
those high management fees, they can really eat into your gains, so their advice is pretty clear.
If you must use a fund, go for something low cost, globally diversified, and ideally a passive index fund.
You've been studying. That's exactly it.
Okay, but just to be sure I've got it straight, remind me again what a passive index fund actually is.
So it's basically a fund that just tracks a broad market index like the C25 here in Denmark.
Right.
And because they're not trying to pick individual winners or time the market, those fees tend to stay nice and low.
So it's kind of like riding the overall market wave.
Exactly.
Instead of trying to be all fancy and surfing it on your own, potentially wiping out in the process.
Precisely. They're all about that long, steady ride.
Going through this report, it's like flipped my whole perspective on investing on its head,
Really? How so?
Well, it's not about, those complex formulas or like chasing after the hottest stock tip.
Yeah, it's not about any of that, is it?
No, it's more about understanding like your own financial situation.
All right.
Your own like risk tolerance.
Yeah.
Making decisions that actually like align with your life stage.
Yeah, right.
Especially here in Denmark.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the key takeaways from all of this. It's about aligning your investment strategy with, your own personal goals, circumstance.
And it's actually kind of empowering when you think about it.
How do you mean?
Well, it takes the pressure off, right? Like, you don't need to be this like financial whiz
Yeah.
to make smart decisions.
You're in the driver's seat.
Exactly. It's more about, I don't know, just being like aware and making informed choices.
Absolutely. And you know, one thing that really stuck with me, they briefly touch upon this idea of what they call human capital.
Human capital. Okay, I'll be honest, I kind of glossed over that part.
Yeah, it's easy to miss. It's not a term you hear every day.
So what's the deal with human capital? How does that fit into the whole investing picture?
So human capital, it's basically recognizing that, you know, your earning potential, your skills, your career trajectory,
Yeah.
those are all assets too.
Oh, interesting.
And just like any investment, they require attention, they require nurturing.
So it's kind of like investing in your own personal growth and development is just as important as investing in the stock market itself.
Precisely. Think of it this way. Early in your career, your earning potential, that might be your biggest asset, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it makes sense to invest in your skills, your education, you know, really focus on that career growth.
So as your income grows, as you start, accumulating those savings,
Yeah,
your investment strategy can kind of evolve along with you.
absolutely. It's not static. It changes and grows with you.
Wow, I like that.
And that, I think, brings us back to the core of, you know, what we've been talking about today.
Yeah.
This idea that smart investing, it's not about trying to outsmart the market.
It's about understanding your own financial picture.
Exactly. Your income, expenses, goals, your risk tolerance.
And making those informed decisions that are actually going to support you in the long run.
You got it.
It's been honestly eye-opening. And I know we've been focusing on this report that's, tailored for a Danish context.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's so much universal wisdom here.
Yeah, absolutely. These are timeless principles.
Thank you so much for guiding us through all of this.
My pleasure. Always a good reminder to revisit these fundamentals.
And for everyone listening, remember, knowledge is power, right?
Hear, hear.
Take the time to educate yourself, understand the basics, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
There are no stupid questions.
Investing, it doesn't have to be this big, scary thing.
It really doesn't.
With the right information and, a healthy dose of self-awareness, you can create a financial future that actually supports your dreams.
Couldn't agree more.
That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
See you next time.
Hey, everyone.